everybody, and welcome to the Masterclass on how to build successful innovation ecosystem. This event is part of UNI.MINDS Festival, which is dedicated to industry-academia partnerships. My name is Uršerše. I'm head of Knowledge Transfer Office at the University of Ljubljana. We are co-organizing this event together with Knowledge Transfer Office of the University of Maribor. So the aim of this workshop is to get more knowledge on how to enhance long-term collaboration and build a successful innovation ecosystem. We'll gain some knowledge on how this is done in successful countries, and we'll also brainstorm on how we can improve this in Slovenia. In the last few years, I think there's been a lot of debate on innovation ecosystem, and I hope this won't be yet just another one. So we invited a very distinguished guest who has a lot of experience with innovation ecosystem building. So why do we need this in Slovenia? The survey in the scope of the project Strengthening the Innovation Ecosystem in Slovenia, a project initiated by Margareta and Spirit, reveals that most respondents, 46%, believe that quadruple helix partners in Slovenia establish periodical cooperation based on ad hoc proposals. Another 35 believe that cooperation is established due to financial incentives, while only 18% believe that this cooperation is well established, well thought out, and exists in long term. Okay, great. So we will focus on long-term industry-academia relationships. And this workshop will have three parts. First will be how to build partnerships. The second, how we can maintain relationships. And the third one will be how to build campus and joint infrastructure. The masterclass will be given by Wim Benz. Wim is a very experienced KTO professional with over 30 years of experience in KTO strategy and execution, ecosystem building, campus development, business development, incubation, and entrepreneurship around in universities around Europe. Wim, please, the floor is yours.
But first I have to unmute myself, of course. Thank you very much, Ursa, and welcome and good morning from my side. I see a lot of black screen, so I would really appreciate, if possible, with your internet connection, that you switch on your video and leave yourself muted. That's more convenient so that we can see each other a bit better. Thank you. Let me share my slides. This one. So I hope that you now can see my slides. Is that correct? Everybody sees it? Yeah, okay. And you can also see my pointer. So if I want to point at things, then you can also see it. Thanks. Okay. We are together for the next 2.5 hours, a bit less. We lost a few minutes, but for the next 2.5 hours, we will be together for what is called a masterclass. So that means that I will be talking quite a lot probably, but I would really, really appreciate if you interrupt me whenever you want. Raise questions, comment, or if you disagree, that would be a nice discussion. Please disagree and come in. Feel free to hop in whenever you like, right? So let's agree upon that first. Now, yeah, Ursa already said a few nice words about my background. Thank you for that, Ursa. Now, yeah, you can read it, and later on you will also get the handout of this masterclass. I will share that with the organization, and they can share it with you again. So you don't need to make notes and write down everything. You will get all the slides. Then you can also read my background. I won't talk about all the details on this slide, but two relevant involvements, and they will also come back in the masterclass later on based on best practices. I've quite a lot of years worked at Eindhoven University of Technology in the Netherlands. And that's where we worked on the so-called Brainport ecosystem altogether. I started there in 2003. So the word valorization was not even invented at that time. We didn't even talk about technology transfer or knowledge transfer. It was called the liaison office at that time, still there. But that's my, let's say, first real TTO role. including incubator, including SME interfaces, including collaboration with corporates, etc. And my current involvement, I'm self-employed, but my current involvement is for most of my time working at Maastricht University in the south of the Netherlands, where we have the so-called Brightlands concept. And I will elaborate on that also quite a lot later on in this masterclass. So those are the two most important ones. Further, my experience is based on projects, short and long-term projects, sometimes many years, with 9 universities in the Netherlands and 17 universities of applied sciences in the Netherlands. So I think I have quite a lot of examples. And I've been quite active, still am quite active in what is called ASTP. For those who don't know, ASTP, it's the branch organization or the professionals organization in Europe for valorization professionals, TTO and KTO professionals. And they organize trainings in which I'm quite involved. So that's a bit of my background. And as Josa already said, I would like to focus on innovation ecosystem, of course, but I take it much wider than just the community or the network or the collaboration between all the parties. I want to talk about strategic partnerships, how to build strategic partnerships and collaboration, how to build and organize and fill in what I call strategic account management. And maybe the first response for those people who are from a university side, the first response will be, hey, wait a second, we are a university. We don't have account managers, do we? I will come back to that later on. And the third element, and that's basically why we're here, of course, is how to build, call it ecosystem, call it campus, call it science park, call it communities, all the different words, but also how to build shared infrastructure and infrastructure in the widest sense. So that will be the topics. And as I said, please leave your camera on if possible. Keep yourself muted. But for now, I would like to invite you briefly introduce yourself, because I understood that not everybody knows all the other participants. So just briefly introduce yourself, your name, your organization, and your job, and that's it, so that we can continue in a couple of minutes. And I'm just starting on my screen, and I hope, sorry if I don't, but I hope that I can pronounce all your names properly. My Slovenian is not that bad and not that good, so forgive me if it's not well pronounced, but I start with Jana. Is that okay?
Yes, Jana is perfect. Thank you. You pronounce it perfectly. So I am, oh, sorry, it's busy office. I'm from University of Ljubljana in TTO, working on market analysis.
Okay, thank you. Then Matej.
Yeah, so I founded, co-founded the University Incubator from University of Maribor in 2001, and we support startups and scale-ups in Maribor region.
Okay.
That's our main role.
Irina doesn't hear me. Janko, I will go back to Irina later on. Janko?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm now work with the Code Lab, and also I'm the part of some network organization here in Slovenia, especially Science Tech and also the Health Day. And why I'm here today, I would like to hear also your experiences, maybe more focused also in the healthcare domain. So
sorry,
in the healthcare, health and medical. So because we figured out that the healthcare domain and the ecosystem in the healthcare have some specifics, and if you can share with us also your experiences, it will be very useful for me.
Yeah, the example on Maastricht will be focused on the Maastricht Health Campus, so I think there will be enough healthcare in that. Natasha.
Hi, I come from Ministry for Economic Development and Technology. Well, my subjects are innovation and industry. Definitely very interested in strategic partnerships and also how to connect innovation partners. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Nina.
Hi, Wim. Hi, everyone. I work as an IP legal advisor in the Knowledge Transfer Office of the University of Ljubljana.
Okay, thank you. Peter.
I'm coming from University of Maribor, head of TTO at our university.
Okay, I will do a second attempt. Irina, what is it? Irina Meterk.
Irina, Meter, can you hear us? No, I think maybe she has some. Irina,
Okay.
hi, you cannot hear us? Okay, maybe she's.
Okay, when it works, Irina, you hop in and you introduce yourself, okay?
Yeah.
I go to the next one.
Yeah.
Oh, now we can hear you. No? Okay, Louis.
Hi, I'm working in, I'm partner of CorpoHub. One of our topics is corporate innovation ecosystems. It's not university, but it is quite similar, I think. So I'm glad to hear also that your story about partner involvements in innovation.
Okay, thank you. Jure?
Yeah, Jure, very good. I am coming from National Institute of Biology. I'm the head of TTO office there.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully I pronounce this well. Polona?
Hi, yes, perfect. Polona from University of Ljubljana from Knowledge Transfer Office. I am in charge of encouraging spin-off creation at University of Ljubljana.
Okay, thank you. Tanja?
Hi, my name is Tanja Vertel, and I'm from the Ministry of Education, Science and Sport, from the Science Directorate. I'm actually involved in like a horizontal person in very different areas like widening, and also with, let's say, the creation of this ecosystem in a sense of the Recovery and Resilience Fund and facility and the plans that we are having together with the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tanja. Chloe? We cannot hear you, Chloe. At least I cannot hear you. You are unmuted, but your microphone doesn't work, I think. No. No, sorry, I will skip you for a second and you can hear us, I assume. Blanca.
Now it's working.
Hi. So I'm Blanca from Agricultural Institute of Slovenia. I work in the TTO office.
Okay. Vojka?
Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Vojka and I'm from the National Institute of Chemistry and I'm heading the Knowledge Transfer Office.
And then Teja?
Hi, my name is Teja. I come from the Knowledge Transfer Office of the University of Ljubljana, and today I'm here because I am the UNI.MINDS support team. So I will be on the bench sitting this one out, but hopefully I will catch some things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Teja. Then is it Urska?
Yeah, it's Urshka, similar than Usha, but just a little bit harder.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology. I've been working on innovation policies and industry policies for a few years now, let's say many years. I'm a person that prepares measures and enforces them. I work on international R&D projects and programs, and I run public tenders. So that's basically it.
Okay, thank you. Igor?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Igor Milek. I come from Spirit Slovenia public agency, and most of my time I work as an NCP for EIC, European Innovation Council in Horizon Europe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Jana?
Okay, so probably you meant me. I'm sorry, I'm connected with two devices since my microphone on computer is not working. So I'm coming from University of Primorska, Faculty of Management, and Transfer of Knowledge Office as well from University of Primorska.
Okay, thank you. And then I hope this is well. Mladen.
Yes, hello to everybody. My name is Mladen Kraljic. I am actually head of the International Relations Department. So I deal together with Peter with the international dimension of our technology transfer processes. And she's not so much smaller than me, but she's sitting far away from me. I have also a guest who is a partner of our university initiative, Athena. And I invite her to tell shortly her function.
Thank you very much. I'm Merle Weimann from the University of Wien, and I came through our network Athena, and I'm currently here in Maribor to get to know the city, but of course also to get to know the different functions of the university and to cooperate closely with our partners. And thank you for letting me join your session.
Okay, you're welcome. Sasa.
Hello, I'm from Slovenian Business Club. We want to connect students, young Slovenian companies, startups, and our members. So,
okay, thank you. Then Spela.
Hi, my name is Spela. I'm coming from Ljubljana University Incubator. We are early stage incubator, and lately we're focusing a lot on researchers and want to develop some programs for them. So looking forward for today's session.
Okay, thank you. Then Jana, you are not on video, but I assume that you can hear me. Jana Hoynik, I mean.
That's
already. Yeah.
The one that said that I have problems with the microphone. On the
sorry. Okay. Yeah. We had. Then back to, maybe it now works. Irina? No.
Yeah. Now I'm with you. I sorry about before. I had an urgent call and I was not in your topics, but okay. I'm Irina from Spirit Slovenia. I'm the head of department for entrepreneurship and technology development, and we are deeply involved in this project regarding the strengthening of innovation ecosystem in Slovenia, together with both ministries for science and economy. So looking forward to today's discussion.
Okay, thank you. And then last chance for Chloe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, I'm Chloe Lianos. I'm currently at the Ministry of Education, Science and Sport with Tanya in the Science Directorate, helping on the Slovenian presidency. But I'm actually been seconded from the UK government into this role. And in the UK, I'm the Energy Storage Innovation Lead, where I look at transferring research into innovation through public policies and funding. And I've actually been a participant myself in technology transfer offices and through the Climate Kick EIT program, looking at transferring my research into reality as well, into application. So I'm here with that hat on more. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Then we continue. And where I want to start is at the starting point of a university with its TTO. Most of you are TTO related people. Some of you are policy related, government related, but I will come back to each one of you, hopefully in the next 2 hours. But my starting point, also my own background, is mainly the TTO of a university. And if you would have asked the university 20 years ago, do you have a TTO? Then they would have looked at you and said, what the hell is that? They didn't know it, they didn't have it, and unbelievable that, but still there are universities who don't have a TTO, but most universities do have a TTO, luckily. But the definition of what a TTO or a KTO is quite different in different universities. It depends a little bit on the national, let's say, rules and funding structure. It depends a little bit on the vision and beliefs of the board of a university. What do we need, or what are we willing to fund? In my opinion, a good TTO of a university, good KTO, okay, knowledge transfer, technology transfer organization, has 3 main tasks and should be paid and rewarded for those 3 roles. And we all know the role of activities and research support. Sometimes that element is not in the central TTO or in the decentral TTO department, but it's in the department itself, in the faculties itself. But in my belief, it should be a role in the TTO, supporting all the researchers in the departments with their, let's say, project activities and collaborative research projects, subsidy projects, grant schemes, etc. The second main, and we will talk about that in the next few slides. The second big role, and very often a TTO is started around that element, is activities in new business development. So everything related to patenting, licensing, startup activities, spin-off activities, incubators, seed fund, pre-seed fund, proof of concept fund, all those elements are in a TTO environment. And most TTOs do have that second role as a starting point, and then they grow and grow. And last but not least, and that's not always a task as TTOs see it, but in my belief, it is a very important task. It's also related, of course, to the other 2, is how to build, maintain, and organize the ecosystem of your university, of your research institute. And if I talk about ecosystems, and we will do that in the next few hours, then I sometimes use the word virtually as network, community, the partnering around the university. And sometimes I mean ecosystem literally in terms of physical activity. So the campus, the science park, the shared facilities, the infrastructure, the buildings, etc. But it's always a combination of those 2. And in my opinion, the TTO has a very important leading role on behalf of the university in that ecosystem. Now, I can discuss that with colleagues in the field, and some of them do have all 3. Most of them do have at least 2, and some of them have number 1 and 2. So it's different, but I believe that it should be all 3, full-fledged. And let's start with the first one. How do we build strategic partnerships with our partners around us? And that can be big corporates, that can be national or international parties, that can be little SMEs. I saw 2 of you working for, what was it, Spirit? I understand that that is focusing on SME interaction. So in the broader sense, how can we build strategic partnerships with companies, with institutes, with NGOs, with others? It can be public and private companies, but how to build strategic partnerships. And it should start like this. Let's start in the top over here. And I call it an industry partner, but this can also be a little SME. This can also be an NGO or an international organization in a semi-public sector. It is a partner with whom we want to collaborate. That partner, hopefully, every partner at that site has a own strategy. Very implicit or explicit, I don't care. But this organization has a strategy, right? And within that strategy and within that future vision, they must have a R&D roadmap. Some of them have an explicit roadmap, some of them have an implicit roadmap, and then it requires a lot of discussion together to get it more explicit. But this company, this institute, this partner must have a roadmap for the next few years. And what we like to do is to map our portfolio and expertise on this roadmap. So matching those 2 worlds. And that matching role is the role of the TTO. And it's not only matching, of course, it's also making the deal, building the relationship, managing maybe the project and the collaboration, getting the funding for the matching, who is going to pay which part of the collaboration. But if we can do this matching, and if we can build on multi-level connections, because that's very often the case, with a big corporate, this university does not have one contact with one project. We probably have multiple projects at the same time running without knowing from each other that we have those projects with the same company. So based on this matching, what we want to build upon that, and that's the role of a TTO to get to that result, is, let's say, simply start with the first project, extend that to a program of projects, elaborate further on, could we develop a collaborative institute or competence center or whatsoever? So it grows and grows and grows, and it becomes more structural relationship. That's the dream of every university with a partner at the other end, right? And hopefully, if you start talking to a big company at the other end, then hopefully they also have that dream to build a long-term relationship with the university. And that's where let's say the sum of all these collaborations leads to a strong ecosystem where partners can find each other easily. And what we want as a TTO, of course, is more relations, better relations, and faster projects that we can start. Look at the line here. The first project might be a bilateral project with a company, but then it grows to a consortium of partners who do a project together. For example, EU-funded projects or national funded projects. It becomes more complex because there's a consortium of players, and it can lead to more structural institute type of activities, or a competence center or a center of expertise. And that is very often strongly dependent on how the national and the regional and the local government steers this. If there are no mechanisms in place to get these types of collaborations started in your country, then it always remains to bilateral projects, consortium projects, subsidized projects, but not structural collaboration for long term. And that's what we need to have if we want to build a strong ecosystem. So my goal would always be to go to this end of the line instead of having a bunch of projects. Unfortunately, very often internally, our researchers, and not to offend them, but they are not interested in all this. They want to do a project, because every project, again, funds the next PhD, to exaggerate a little bit, right? And the role of the TTO is to bring that all together, multi-point, multi-level, multi-topic within that big university on one side and big company or companies and a cluster of companies at the other side. So that's the role. And let me illustrate one simple example. Have you ever heard of DAF, the truck manufacturer in the Netherlands, which is a full subsidiary of Packard, the American truck manufacturer? That company DAF is the neighbor of Eindhoven University of Technology. The locations of those two are in walking distance in a couple of minutes. So you can imagine that there is some collaboration between those two in all kinds of technical teams, in electronics, in mechanical engineering, in automotive, in tires, in design, in different topics, right? So theoretically, we know there is a lot that we can match. Now look what happens. The president of DAF has changed, so there's a new president coming in, and DAF is coming from an economic terrible period. So they have absolutely declined R&D in the past few years, and the new president that comes in has a vision and says, if we want to grow again, we need to invest, even in worse times, we need to invest in more R&D for the future. At a meeting, at a more informal meeting, this guy meets the president of our university. They are chit-chatting a little bit, and this guy from DAF is bragging, we are going to spend more money on R&D in the next few years. And my president comes home and has heard this with 2 ears. He gives me a phone call the next morning and says, Wim, make sure that you get all the money that he's going to spend. That was the message, which is quite nice, right? He has 2 ears, he listened, he heard, he picked it up. It was a signal, and he wants me to listen to that signal. So I started with my TTO colleagues to investigate what are we already doing with them today. My president doesn't know that, but we should find out what are all the different activities that we already have. And we discovered 8, not only student projects, but 8 PhD projects currently going on with DAF, funded by DAF or partially funded by DAF. The bad news was those 8 PhDs didn't know each other. Some of them knew 2, 3, even 4 colleagues, but they didn't know, none of them knew that there were 7 others. Even their professors who coached them didn't know of the existing of 8 projects. They all knew 2 or 3, but not all 8. So the first step that we did was bring them all together, 16 people, to share what are we doing. In the morning session, we shared. In the afternoon session, we asked them, okay, if you are there, you hear things, you see things. Have you seen something that is interesting for DAF, which you cannot do, but maybe somebody else within our university might be able to do? So trying to find ideas here that we could match with other colleagues within our university. And we gathered a whole long list of different ideas that might be a potential project. Now, the next step is how to sell this to DAF, right? Because we can have ideas, but do they see those ideas too? And are they willing to step into a project with us on that topic? So the next step was we invited the guys and girls who were coaching our PhDs within the company. So we had a little bit of trouble to convince those people to come and share everything with us, but we agreed on an NDA. Everything that we are going to share in this meeting is under an NDA. And we had a very successful meeting with our 16 people internally and with about 12 or 13 people from DAF coming in. And we had a brainstorming session on what we call road mapping. And at the end of the afternoon, this led to 3, immediately in one meeting, this led to 3 new PhD projects where we found each other and where we said, hey, wait a second, this is a new match. This is what we should start immediately. So it is strengthening the relationship by just bringing them together. A very important element to spend time on this, sharing, and then sharing means multiplying for both sides. And that's the example what I mean here with building strategic collaborations. And if you look at the steps that we walked through, we try to understand altogether what is their mission and strategy. And we try to discuss with them that they understand what our mission and strategy is. So match those two already on that high level. Then deduct from the missions and strategies from both sides. What are the roadmaps and what is the portfolio and themes that we can match? And the 3 extra projects were deducted from that. We want to build a strategic collaboration and what is needed for that. And based on these discussions on these levels, we came to 3 new projects with DAF. But this is the step-by-step approach that you should do, let's say once every year, twice every year with a strategic partner, to have that high-level discussion, which leads finally to a number of projects that we started together. And the last step in the discussion should always be the funding issue. And the funding question can also be, where the hell do we get a subsidy to do this? Because we are not yet willing to pay for it. The university is not able to pay for it fully. So we have a gap, and this gap needs to be funded by external money. And as a university, we have a horizon of 5 to 10 years in our research roadmap, but this company might have a short-term agenda, but behind that, there's also a 5 to 10 years horizon. And that's the process that we should have together. And this looping is done once, twice every year with that strategic partner, right? And that from that looping, we deduct projects. Exactly the same, and the same approach could be used for what we call the subsidy pipeline. What we all try to do is, for example, get money from Brussels, waiting for the next call, write a proposal, send it to them, and get disappointed again because it's rejected. And the average of score of Horizon 2020 projects, if you send in, the average score is below 10%. So we have multiple disappointments. And why is that? Why are we so often being disappointed? because we very often forget these 3 steps. Let me exaggerate. We start thinking what to do when the call is being published. And I can guarantee you that's by far too late. What we should do, together with the government, together with the region, together with policymakers, is get involved in the process in Brussels. Influence, lobby, build consortium, lobby together, put this on the national agenda, bring the national agenda to the European agenda. And that means already work here, maybe already for 2 years before the call is going to be published, try to influence and get involved in the process, and then start writing a project. We have been doing this in the Eindhoven University environment, also in the Wageningen University environment, and the hit rate on their projects in Brussels has increased dramatically. Because we now know what to do, when to do it, but also, very important, who not to allow to write a proposal again. We had a discussion a couple of years ago where we investigated as a TTO that within Eindhoven University, at a certain call from the in this case, the national government, there was a call coming up, and there were 120 professors within our university who were in some consortium building a project to be sent in for that call. 120. And we knew that on a national level, there may be money in the total call for all universities in the Netherlands. And to give you an idea, we have 13 in the Netherlands. For all universities together, there will be enough money to fund approximately 25 projects. And we were planning to send in 120, which is ridiculous. We don't have a chance that we even get close to that. If we have 13 universities and there's money for 25, let's assume that we can get 2 at least. If we do well, we get 3 or 4. If we do extremely well, we get 5 or 6. But that's it. So we have to find out which of those 120 initiatives should we kill before they spend too much time. See you go to the university professor, you say, you stop now. And that process of, let's say, qualifying the chance, building the right consortium, trying to find out whether if this will fit with industry agendas, because industry influences this project pipeline also, and then try to score what you want to score. Second problem, the right side of this picture. Now we have a project, we scored a project, Horizon or national or regional project funded. And the time scale is wrong. This yellow block is, for example, 4 to 5 years running a project. The European project is always 4, 5, 6 years long. And what we do at the end of the project, we are very hard working to get all the deadlines, to meet all the deadlines, to do the reporting, to do the administration, to do the evaluation, the monitoring, and all the things that we have to do. And finally, just before the deadline, we got there. And now we need some rest. And then the next step is we have to fire all those people because we don't have any funding for them anymore. The subsidy is gone. And then we have a dream, but we should get a new project with those people because we want to keep them, but we don't have a new project yet. This takes 2 years and all the right people are gone and we can start all over again. And this mistake we do again and again and again. So also at the second half, we shouldn't start thinking of a new project when the previous project has finalized. No, we should start of a new project somewhere at the point where this project starts. Because it takes 2 to 3 years to get a new project. So you should already start somewhere here in the middle with getting the next project up and running and funded. Otherwise, it will be always discontinuity whenever you have a project. And that's not what we want. That's not a structural collaboration. And what we very often forget to use in that steps for lobbying and building networks and consortia and get involved in the process of, let's say, the call definition, for example, is we can include our alumni. And a big issue in every university that I see again and again and again is the TTO is very often not connected to the alumni department in the university. We do all have an alumni department, right? but those are completely separated, two different units within the same university, and they hardly ever speak together. The TTO should also have a responsibility for the alumni network. Think about that. Maybe we can also include our emeriti professors. We send people at home. What is the age in Slovenia? I don't know, but in the Netherlands it's 66. So when you are 66, you are sent away. And those people don't want to play golf 7 days a week. They want to feel useful. They want to stay active in their network. We can use them to build the ecosystem, the regional, the national, or the international ecosystem. So use those people. They are there and they like to do it. So back to this, the strategic collaboration on this level. Maybe if we have more than one partner, then it looks like this. We have roadmaps with all those partners, and then we could find, let's say, the common aspects, and that could lead to a strong focus on, for example, photonics, or a strong focus on circularity, or a strong focus with all those partners that we have on chemical processes, or on healthcare, on diabetes. It depends on who are the partners. Can you build an ecosystem, and can you cluster them all together and make enough focus? And if we have enough focus, the chance to build successful pipeline of projects, for example, in grant schemes in Europe, national and regional, gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because we all have the same agenda now. We all speak the same language. We all do the same lobbying. And that is important to really build an ecosystem. Now, from, let's say, the strategic level, I now go down to the more operational level, how to do this. Because the vision might be there, but now the execution. And the execution on the bottom line level is those people, whether if it's TTO people or policy-making people at the other end, or it's strategic people in the corporate staff of the university, or it's the local people from the municipality or the province or whatever it's called, those people all need to understand, what do USPs stand for? Do you know what it means? You can use the chat box if you know the answer. And I see that there's also some questions in the chat. We'll have a quick look. Unique selling point or unique selling proposition. Both answers are okay. Now to make it, and I will come back to the question on the incentives later on. Do you also know what UBR means? Any idea? I don't see anybody answering. I'm going to tease you. Janko, what do you think? No idea? Peter, what do you think?
It's got to be connected to unique, I guess. Unique.
Hey, okay, that's 1/3 is okay.
Yeah. And
what is the R?
Research, maybe.
No.
Or
what would be the B? Any idea? Who has an idea what the
business? Business.
Almost. Polona?
I wanted to say business as well.
Okay. No, it stands. None of you has studied marketing, right? Oh, maybe Jana, you studied marketing. Maybe. You should know.
It's years ago.
That's not an excuse.
Didn't exist then.
UBR stands for unique buying reasons.
Buying reasons. Okay.
What is the difference? Can anybody elaborate on what's the difference between those two words or those two abbreviations?
It's point of view, right?
Yeah, what do you mean, Peter?
Because if you talk about unique selling proposition or point, you're talking about yourself, and the value you're providing to the customer. Where at unique buying reason, probably you're in the shoes of your buyer more than with a unique selling proposition.
Perfect. The answer can be much shorter, but you're completely right. One is push, one is pull. Push and pull. Look at this. Find a colleague. No. I now tell you the trick, so it won't work anymore. So if you go home this afternoon, find 2 colleagues and put those 2 colleagues in 2 different rooms and give them those 4 questions that you see on the screen now. But the first colleague, you give first this question: what is our business? Let them write it down, or her, let her write it down. What is our business? Your colleague writes down, what is your business? The other colleague in the other room gets as the first question, think of a customer and what is the business of this customer as he would define it? That's a tricky question, right? But let him think of the answer. What is the business of this customer the way he defines it himself? Now, when they are finished, they get a second question. The first colleague gets, what is the business as the customer would see our business? Right? And the other one gets a question, what is the business of the customer as I see it? So one works top down, one works bottom up. And when they are finished, all 4 questions, then you should compare the answer that 2 colleagues write down on this question. What is our business? And the first one has written down a number of unique selling points that we have, trying to sell. And the other one has written down a number of buying reasons that we should have. Try this at home, and the answer of 2 colleagues who know your organization extremely well give 2 complete different answers. One answers USPs and one answers UBRs. One is looking at value creation, and the other one is looking at specifications. You can do it at home and test it, and it really works. Now, to the people. This is where I introduce the word account manager. Who of you, and now this question is specifically for those in the university TTO environments, of course, who of you in your university has people who are appointed on the job account manager? Is there anybody who has an account manager as a colleague? That's a problem. Nobody has that, right? If I would have said...
But not a full FTE. Not a full FTE, maybe just a half of a person.
Okay. If I would have said, who of you has a colleague called business developer? Then probably most of you have colleagues who are having a job title business developer, right? But business developer could be seen as a sort of similar word for account manager. But very often when we say business developer, we mean those people who help the professor with an invention to create a startup. That is business development, right? But in my opinion, business development can also be used completely different. Who develops the business of the university? And then the word account manager, maybe contact manager, contracts manager, relationship manager would be better words or similar words, but I want to focus on the word account management. And what is an account manager? That is a person who is going to manage, and I introduce immediately the word customer. And now, again, if I would have asked the board of the university, who are your customers? What would be the answer of most board members? Students, which are not customers. Students are products. And we sell those products to industry. Don't say this to students, by the way, but it's a way of looking at it, right? Who are our customers? Our customers are companies. Who are our customers? The ministry. No. The ministry is our funding organization. And we execute the policy of our ministry, which is helping customers with talent development. Students are not our customers, they are products. So managing the customer's perception, preference, and ambitions, and matching those on the ambition, the portfolio, the processes, and the procedures of the university. This sounds difficult, right? But those last two words, processes and procedures, are also extremely important because we have a tendency within a university to make things difficult when it can be done easy. So the account manager also has to help the external party to find his way within the complex university structures. And the other way around, if we want to do business with a big company, they also have processes and procedures, and we have to help our researchers to find their way in the processes and procedures of the company, right? Matching two worlds. That's the role of an account manager. Multi-level, multi-point, creating partnerships, develop codes of conduct and sort of ethical code, umbrella agreements, gentlemen's agreements, and create brand preference. If it itches, they call you. And maybe you're not the best one equipped with the best expertise and you have to refer them to a colleague university, but they first call you to help them and have a discussion with you. It's based on trust. And this could be the role of a TTO in general, right? But again, this is building an ecosystem around your university based on trust, based on strategic partners. And this TTO officer has a role to orchestrate this, has a role to connect all those different players, not to do all the work, not to judge all the contracts, not to see all the emails in CC, because if he wants or she, if they want to do that, they become the bottleneck in the ecosystem and everybody sooner or later hates him. So they should orchestrate, not do it. They should connect and not want to be there. They cannot go to every meeting with every professor in every project, but they have to know that there is a meeting with the professor in a project with a company, because that might influence another meeting tomorrow with another professor. So that's bridging gaps, building a bridge between the two worlds. Service-oriented, never ever claim the success. It's always, success has many fathers. And normally the saying is, failures are an orphan, but in TTO language, failures are always to be blamed by the TTO. It's always the stupid TTO who did something wrong. It's never the researcher who did something wrong. That's unfortunately the role of the service organization. And now, I hope I don't offend anybody here. If I use the word account manager, that is a job which requires specific competences. And I can guarantee you that most, not everybody, most of your researchers do not have these competences. If they would have had these competences, they would have been the sales manager of a company instead of a professor of a university, right? So most people do not have those competences, at least not excellent competences. Most of your board members and management and directors and deans and what you have, those people don't have those competences. It's a specific required competence. Most of your corporate staff, sorry, most of the policymakers, sorry, they don't have these competences. It's a different play. Be aware of that. And if you don't have this role, then you cannot build strategic collaboration and strategic partnerships. It is an element in the team that we need to build it. So what is the role of these people? The role of these people is to generate suspects, create leads, convert them to prospects, and finally close deals. And deals in the sense of a university, and not in the sense of a company, but deals means a project, including all the nitty-gritty details, the legal stuff, the IP stuff, the funding stuff, the team, the project management role, the rules and regulations between the players, the communication lines that we use for escalation. All those nitty-gritty details have to be solved. Make it easy for the customer to buy, and to buy more, of course, not one project and then, okay, nay, build a relationship, a long-term relationship, and help to organize the total cycle of activities between those two worlds. That's the role of the account manager. And that means that he or she really has to understand the customer. What is his strategy? What is his roadmap? What are the issues? And that's where it leads to what we call a SWOT. Who of you says SWOT? SWOT? What the hell is SWOT? Never heard of. Have you all done a SWOT before? Yes, yes, I see some nodding. Yes, yes, yes. Who has never done a SWOT analysis? It's not a shame, eh? It's not a shame. Anybody? Okay, then I'm now going to tease you. If you have done a SWOT, then forget all about that, because doing a SWOT is something stupid. I will come back to that in 1 hour. Forget it and don't ever use the word SWOT anymore. Promise? I will explain in an hour. Back to selling. This is what we have to do with selling. And by the way, selling is not only for companies, selling is also for a university. Selling is also for a government. Selling is also for a regional policy officer. You have to sell your policy, right? You have to sell your goal to all those others that you need in the ecosystem to get involved and reach the goals together. None of us can do it all alone. You also have to sell that to the other partners in the ecosystem. So don't take selling too literally. I'm not selling a car. I'm selling science. I'm selling IP. I'm selling a collaboration ambition. Imagine we have a suspect. Could any one of you describe the word suspect? When would we call somebody a suspect? Anybody dares?
We assume that they could be our customers, but they didn't identify yet. They're not identified yet, or
yeah, you're close, Matej. You assume that you could be of value for them, but unfortunately, they don't know you. They don't know who you are, and they don't know that you have something that they might want to have. So there is no contact yet, right? So what you can easily do, if you have a dream, you can make a list of suspects, right? You can go to the Chamber of Commerce and buy a list if you want. And then you have a list of 1,000 suspects. The next step can be, let's send them a friendly email, a flyer, a brochure. Let's invite them to a seminar, or let's invite them to our booth on the exhibition. I don't care. We want to get in touch, so let's send them something and invite them for something. What has to happen, Matej? What has to happen to make a suspect become?
They need to react. They need to apply, or they need to download. Like
they have to come back. Yeah, you send them something.
Come back, yes.
And they respond. They say, "Hey, Matej, this was an interesting mail. Could we elaborate on a bit more details? Or could we meet? Or can I visit you?" If they respond, now we have a lead. What has to happen to make a lead become a prospect? Jure, any idea?
They should show us some more interest about our things.
Yeah, some more, but what do you mean with some more? They ask you again, can I visit you?
They should ask questions, I think.
Yeah, be more precise. What type of questions?
As concrete as possible.
Buying signals.
They want to know what we can offer.
They ask for a quotation, or they ask for, could you send us a proposal in how this could work in our case? So they are now challenging you to get more detailed information how this could work for them. So now you're in touch. This is called a prospect. There's serious interest in getting to know more and maybe wanting to come to business. When do we call a prospect a hot prospect?
When they see the value.
Yeah, but what has to happen?
We don't negotiate with them already or something like
exactly, Matej. They start, and it can be very subtle, they can start negotiating. Hey, Matej, how fast could we do this? That's a form of negotiation, right? Or, Okay, that PhD project sounds interesting, but what if we could start with 2 students? This is negotiating, right? They already want a little bit and pay a little bit, testing you. So this is a pipeline of projects converting from suspect to finally a customer. What has to happen to make a hot prospect become a customer?
An
What has to
exchange.
happen? Sorry?
An
Ilona?
exchange.
Sign the contract. Sign the contract.
Exactly. A signature.
Signature.
I will come back to that word signature later on in a few extra slides, but a handshake is not a contract. A verbal agreement in a meeting between professor and R&D manager in the industry is not a contract. Having a meeting and having a drink and shake hands and say, yeah, I will send you this tomorrow is not a contract. It's a contract when you have the signature. Then we have a contract, we have a customer. What are those 3 words here? Deep, up, and cross-sell. You have seen those words before. Deep selling means do it again and again and again and again. Upselling means, yeah, you bought version 1, but we now have version 2. Upgrading, extra features, additional functionality, an extra element of the project that we didn't have the money, but now we got a subsidy, now we can do it. Cross-selling means, yeah, but you did something with our mechanical engineering department, but without design, it's nothing. So we should also start a project with a student on design or a student on electronics, right? So cross-selling other disciplines in our portfolio and extend the relationship. A nice, interesting topic here is a professor hates to do things again and again and again, right? And that's a pity. He has very interesting expertise, and she wants to do it once, maybe twice, but then he gets bored because it doesn't lead to new science, new outcomes. So they don't want to be a consultant, right? And this is where potentially a spin-off comes in. But maybe it's not the professor who wants to start a spin-off, but the knowledge and the expertise that they have is interesting. Customers want to buy it again and again and again, but he is not willing to spend time again and again and again. And this is the idea where a spin-off is being born. In our situation in Maastricht, and an example, and I will come back later on, in Maastricht, we have a company called Maastricht Instruments. And the word says instruments, they build instruments for laboratories for research. So the professor has a dream, has a project, wants to do an experimental setting and needs instruments. Unfortunately, those instruments you cannot buy. So we have a department building our own instruments for professors. It's not a sellable product. It's a first version element of an instrument. But if that instrument is working and there's a publication, then suddenly colleague researchers in the world start asking our professor, I would also like to have such an instrument in our research environment. Can you copy this and send me a copy? And this is where our company, Maastricht Instruments, comes in. And now and then, when we have sold 1, 2, 3, 4 versions, then we say, stop. Now we spin it out of Maastricht Instruments and we again have a little venture based on that specific machine or device or piece of equipment. And that's how we generate ventures based on first, second, third element instruments that we build, devices, software sometimes. It's deep selling in the context of a university. But selling and building partnerships means playing chess on many fields at the same time. And this is, again, the role of the TTO, the role of the account manager. Use your network and build your ecosystem. Because if you have a strong ecosystem where this is common to do, you can make projects being born almost automatically in the ecosystem, and you're always the preferred partner. So now back to, as I said before, the signature. Who is going to make the deal with you? Do we know the word DMU? Who of you knows what the word DMU means? Any idea? No? Decision-making unit. You know what? In your university, in your ministry, in your company, nobody takes a decision all by himself. It's always being influenced by many others before a decision is being made. For example, in the decision-making unit is also this guy. Recognize this guy? We have many of those, right? In a lot of companies, especially, in a lot of SMEs, we have a lot of those people. They don't know what they don't know. It's not because they are stupid. It's simply they don't know what they don't know. So a very important role in the ecosystem is also to make these type of people aware that they should now and then think and make a little bit of time to think about those things they don't know yet. Come to a meeting, invite them to a seminar, have a drink together and talk with colleagues. This is why meetings are so important. To get this guy, to get this guy involved in something that he didn't know yet, and he starts to believe, oh my God, if this can be done, then maybe we should also do that. Making the people who are unconscious of their unknown, make them conscious of their unknown. And that's where innovation starts. In the DMU, we have those 4 people. Imagine you come in a meeting where you want to sell your idea, and you prepared your presentation, 12 PowerPoint slides, and you step into the room where you are going to do your presentation, and you see 4 people sitting at the table, those 4. This is your first impression. Okay, what should be your focus? Can somebody give me 4 words for characterizing those 4 people? What should be the focus of your pitch if you want to sell something to those 4 people? Any idea?
Yeah, maybe. On the left hand, the upper guy, we can make his life easier. Let's say he don't need to worry about the projects, or everything is like it will run smoothly. The second one up, it's like that we will help them to earn more money. The main thinking is like we can help them to rescue the company. Like we have like miracle technology that could like turn around the company. And the perfect guy is that we have like really trusted technology that will not let them down, or that will help them flourish on the technology market or something like that.
Yeah, it's quite well what you say, Matej. I would use 4 words. I would say the upper left guy, service. So that he doesn't have to worry, even if he buys something, when it gets broke, you will repair. Service is the word for this guy. Euros, money, profit is the word for the guy upper right, right? Mm-hmm. Bottom right, compliance. Or quality, compliance. This is the compliance manager. Mm-hmm. Now the guy in the left. Now we have a problem. We are a university, and I want to sell something to a company, and this is my spokesperson at the other end. What is the one single word that he wants to hear?
Solution.
No.
Help. Profit.
Yeah, of course, a solution, but there's a much more important word.
Profit.
No. Fast.
Fast.
Fast. And this is also a big problem between universities working together with companies, right? Companies want things fast. Have you ever seen a university who can deliver fast? That's a big problem, right? And that's a mismatch between two worlds. And if it's a corporate, then the problem is not that big. But if it's a little company, an SME company, a young startup company, they need something fast because their horizon is a couple of weeks, couple of months, but not a couple of years. So the word fast is in many, many universities a very troublesome word. So we also have to think of possibilities, internal or external in our ecosystem, how we can reply to the word fast. And if I look at, for example, our colleague university in the Netherlands, the University of Twente, and you probably are not that well known in the Netherlands that you know exactly where it is located, but the University of Twente, which is very similar to the University of Eindhoven, almost the same size, many the same disciplines and technology people. But the University of Twente, instead of Eindhoven, Eindhoven is in a region with a lot of big companies, Philips, ASML, DAF, all kind of big players, European international players. The University of Twente is in a region where they have, no, I don't dare to say no, but where they have hardly any big players. It's an SME region. Many SMEs, highly specialized SMEs, all kinds of SMEs, but only SMEs and no corporates. So the problem for Eindhoven University to help companies is not that much the time element, because we have corporate players and they understand. But the University of Twente has to play fast in their ecosystem because their main partners at the other side are smaller and medium-sized enterprises. And then the word fast is very important. So they have been building a structure around the university, an ecosystem, a campus, where those industries and the universities meet and greet, sit together, work together, live together in the same building. And their startup ecosystem is a very different startup ecosystem. Their startups are focusing on building bridges between science and SMEs. And the exit strategy for most of the startups in their environment is to merge or to be eaten or to go together with SMEs. And keep that in mind. If the characteristics of that region is mainly SMEs, then you need a different structure of your ecosystem than if the environment of your university is the financial districts in the capital, or if it's the high-tech region with big players. So different people have different reasons, but those people represent companies. And if this is the DMU of Philips, you can find a solution. But if this is the DMU of this little SME company, you have a problem. Because then the main decision maker here might be this guy. In the big company Philips, the main decision maker may be this guy. In a lot of companies, this person has a veto right. Be aware of that. So try to find out who are the players and how are we connected, because look at this picture. All those people have certain roles in getting something yes or no. In starting something new, yes or no. And if you don't have the right person and the right contact, and it's always multi-level, multi-point, then you think you might have a deal or you're close to a deal, but you're not. You forgot this guy or you forgot that girl. And then there's no deal until he or she is also yes. And then not only people are a problem, but also the procedures, the processes, the decision-making criteria. There's a whole department who is involved in decision-making. Don't we recognize this also internally in our university? We have a procurement department with protocols and procedures, right? We have mandates on certain levels. Somebody is or is not authorized to sign something. So it is it is so important to really understand also all the elements of those levels. And the professor in your university is an excellent scientist, but he hates procedures. He hates people who have veto rights or obey rules. He is too creative. And that's why this also leads to a lot of conflicts between people who don't want to talk to each other. And those people are in this picture. And a lot of your researchers, let's say from the 7 people on the picture here, your researcher does not want to be bothered by 6 of them. Now, that was the DMU. Back to an account manager. When I tried to explain to the president of our university that we need a few account managers, then he said to me, but hey, wait a second, Wim. As I see account managers, those people only drink coffee, play golf, go to dinners, have a lease car, spend money, never bring in money. Yeah, that's right. That's their job. They are paid to do that. Spending money. They never publish. They don't teach. They don't lead a department. They are overhead and cost. They are a waste of money, right? Now, I'm going to try to convince you after the break that they are not a waste of money. And I hope I already convinced you a little bit. So my suggestion, it's now 1:20. I would suggest that we have a short bio break. Coffee, bio, cigarette, I don't know. Is that okay? Is 6 minutes enough? Or do you need 7? Okay, see you back in 7 minutes, okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Great. See you.
Hey Wim, you can just take over the slides and sharing. So.
Okay. Okay, welcome back. I don't see everybody. People hopping in. I said to Ine before we started that if we take 6 minutes, then it will be 7. And if we take 7, it will be 8. So let's wait a few seconds, then we have 8 minutes. And then we continue. But not more than 1 minute, because then I'm going to punish those people who came back in 7 minutes.
Sorry.
Okay. Before we go on to the second half, maybe a few more words about this person who will be the account manager tomorrow. A couple of years ago, when I suggested to the president to do that and hire a few account managers, after some discussion, a lot of discussion, he finally approved, and I was allowed to hire 2 people, 2 senior people, well-paid, good people. So I started my search, and I found one guy, a very good guy, who has worked in university environments, who has worked in research environments. He was well known in that environment, but he now worked for a number of years in a commercial account management role in industry, in R&D intensive industry. So it was quite a good guy that could fit easily in our university. He was graduate from our university a long time ago, and he wanted to step into this job, but he had one very, very, very important condition. The salary was not that important, but he wanted to keep his company car. Okay, so I went back to the president of the university. I got the perfect guy. I want to hire him, but he wants to have a company car. Can we give, as a university, this guy a company car? Of course not. Yeah, but this is what he wants. And he is accepting less salary, but he wants a car. Absolutely impossible. Okay, so I went back home and I was sad. And I tried to think of a little trick. So we started an incubator company, which was a copy of our internal TTO department, a 100% subsidiary company of the university, 100%, so not a real venture, but a sort of intermediate company. I handed over a bit of my budget to the company. I was the managing director of the company too. And that company was meant for everything that I couldn't realize internally, I can now realize externally. So I hired this guy in the company. He's paid from the same salary, but now via the company, and he got his company car. And everybody was happy. And even my president said, okay, no problem. He's not an employee of the university, so it doesn't make a difference anymore. So maybe my president was a bit flexible, and he understood that I should want this, but was not allowed to do this within the university, because then everybody wants to have a company car. But now I found a solution, and he accepted and he agreed, because it was for the good cause. I do realize, however, that not all presidents of every university are this flexible. So sometimes you have to find another trick. Okay, next topic. I have been talking quite a lot about this, sales and account management, and working on collaborative projects, on strategic partnerships. And now let's step to the world of the ecosystems. And if I talk about ecosystem, as I said in the beginning, for me it's many, many different words. What is the definition? Doesn't matter. Building an ecosystem is a huge potential, but a heavy burden. A lot of different elements, a lot of different aspects, a lot of different people involved, different levels involved. And sorry for those people who work in the governments, every 4 years, things change. Because somebody new comes. I don't know how it's in Slovenia, but in the Netherlands, every 4 years, we have a new government, we have a new local government, we have, by the way, also within the university, the board members are being appointed for 4 years, and in 4 years, there's a new person. And all the discussions start all over again. I will come back to that in the next 1.5 hours. Now, as Yrsa already mentioned, there's already a lot of talking about building ecosystems in your country. 2 very interesting reports at the current state of play and also benchmarking your country. And if you read those reports, and I've not studied them, but I've read them, and I can guarantee you they are quite inspiring. So if you haven't seen them before, read them. And there's really a lot of important messages for you, for all of you, at all sides. So I can really recommend that. Now, the wording. What is an ecosystem? Per definition, it's public-private partnerships. It's strategic collaboration between many different players. Some of them call triple helix. Today, most commonly word is used quadruple helix partnerships. The idea is it's not 1 + 1 is 3, because that's the bilateral relation between a university and a company to work together to create 1 + 1 is 3. The ecosystem should make 1 + 1 + 1 is 5. That's the idea of the ecosystem. It is a possibility to share facilities, very expensive facilities that we are not able to buy ourselves, by sharing things. Even today, in the battle of talent, by sharing people, we can build strength and make 1 + 1 + 1 become 5. Especially for those 2 of you who are in the world of SMEs, the battle for talent, the war for talent is heavily growing. If you want to have the right person in your little company, then you have to accept the word sharing. Even sharing with the competition. If not, you don't get them. And by not getting them, you will die. By sharing them with the competition, you won't die. Look at it from the bright side. Sharing with competition is the bright side. Not sharing is dying. I will come back to sharing quite a lot. Build learning communities. Reuse what the neighbor did yesterday and try to do that in your company or in your university or in your structure. So the word co-creation, collaboration, co-development, those are the words that it's all about. Physical or virtual, I don't care. And we have many examples. One of you, I forgot who it was, but one of you was seconded from the UK. Also in the UK, there's nice examples. In Belgium, in France, in your country, probably, there's many nice examples and best practices that you can learn from. And that's relevant. How can we learn from others? Because we also want to build a strong ecosystem, right? And now in a bit more detail, and I borrowed a couple of slides from one of our consultancy firms here, Buck Consultants International, who are also active in your country, I think. But they have quite a lot of material on how to build an ecosystem, how to build a campus. And they have some wordings here. What is an ecosystem? It's a network of cross-industry players, preferably quadruple helix. What is a cluster? That is more the cluster of enterprises and knowledge institute in a specific theme. An ecosystem is not for a specific theme, it's broad, many different themes. A cluster is focusing on a specific topic or theme. A science park is more the physical environment, the innovation campus, as we can call it, or the science park. The innovation district is also a word that is coming up more and more. That is more the word that we use for, let's say, inner city areas where specific topics, the creative district or the industry district or the financial district. That's where the automotive district, where all the car sellers are coming together and want to sit next to each other with the competition. Innovation districts. So if you look at the levels today, this is a research and analysis of state of the art from PricewaterhouseCoopers. If you invite board members, what are most important elements that you want to use to be part of an ecosystem, and what is your organization driving, then one of you raised that question also in the chat box. It's the most common word, but if you ask follow-up questions, they probably cannot answer the right answer, but the most common answer is open innovation reasons. We are not able to do our own research and development for the whole life cycle completely individually all by ourselves. We have to do open innovation to make it affordable, but most of all, to speed up. Buy in, spin out, all those elements are important. I will come back to that in a couple of minutes. Also, another reason, which is the number 2 on the list, call it creative thinking, design thinking to brought into your organization. The external view of others to bring into your company. Most people in a company are, after a few years, are blind for all those external developments. And that's main reasons why we should be thinking about these elements. Now, another picture that I've stolen from the strategy, Open Innovation Strategy and Policy Group from the EU. 3 different approaches. Historically, we always had closed innovation. The big player had an R&D department spending a lot of money. For example, do you have, everybody knows Philips, a little Dutch company. Do you have any idea how many patents Philips has? Anybody who can guess the amount of patents that came out of Philips research and development? Any idea? Just guess. Type something in the chat. 1,000. Mate, 1,000. Anybody offering more or less? 60,000. My God. 100. Okay, Urza, you're close. 100 is also close. The amount of patents at Philips today is over 125,000. So you can imagine that from the 125,000 inventions that Philips people did, that they only use less than 10% in their own product lines, right? So 90% or more than 90% is a complete waste. Incidental findings that they cannot use themselves. What the hell to do with those 90,000 patents or 100,000 patents? And that is why they were one of the first companies, at least in the Netherlands, they were the first, and in Western Europe, they were one of the first, I would say. They were one of the first companies who embraced the word open innovation. For them, that was the way to cut down a lot of cost here in the own R&D department, to spin out those things that for sure they are not going to use themselves. They still have a whole bunch of patents. I don't know the exact figure today, but a couple of years ago when I discussed with the IP guy from Philips, they have at that time, they have approximately 30,000 patents that form a sort of defensive cycle around Philips, trade objects. So if Samsung has something new, they can make a trade out. I give you this, then I get also that. 30,000 of the 125,000 are defensive and trade objects. But still, 50, 60,000 patents are relatively worthless for Philips. So try to get rid, and that's why they embraced open innovation. Externally focused, collaborative innovation. Today, we are going one step further than open innovation. We now call it innovation networks. So let's say, in all directions, collaborations, interactions, exchanges, spin in, spin out. A big company, I don't know in Slovenia, but a big company in the Netherlands has an internal incubator today. And if they have it internal, it's stupid. They have it at arm's length, right? Still within the umbrella of the company, but at arm's length, preferably without too many rules, without too many bosses. Otherwise, it's a dead start. But this is the way we organize a modern company today in the field of R&D, in an innovation network and ecosystem. And that's why it's so important. Now, maybe, let's say, going to a higher level, and now I talk to all of you all together as a responsible team who is going to build Slovenia 2.0 or 3.0 or 5.0, I don't care. If you want to build a strong country, then you need to have strong regions. If you want to have strong regions, you need to have strong ecosystems. And within the ecosystems, you need to have strong clusters. And that immediately means that you also have to make choices. In Slovenia, in any country, in Slovenia, you cannot be the best in everything. You have to make choices. Your university has to make choices. And also be precise in making the choice. We had a discussion a couple of years ago in the BrainPod area, and I will come back to BrainPod in a couple of minutes. We had a discussion at the University of Eindhoven. We want to focus more on nanotech. And at that time, we had about 350 full professors. And suddenly, because at a board level, there was, we want to do more on nanotech. And suddenly over 300 professors could describe their field of research within 2 sentences as being in the core of nano. Which is ridiculous, of course. They are not in the core of nano. But the risk, if not, was to be kicked out. So focus and choose and indeed kick some out. Give them to the other university, give them to the other country, because you cannot be the best in everything. Choose a focus. And that's one of the important lessons that I learned, which is very general, of course, but I learned that in practice with the 2 examples that I'm going to share with you later on. Another very important element is the, call it the wheel. Build a wheel if you want to focus on topic XYZ, and make sure that all the different elements in the wheel are there. Otherwise, you don't have a focus on a specific cluster and you will not be successful. And I deliberately took a few of the elements that I want to elaborate on over here. And for those of you who are in the public sector and governments, make sure that you are able to support a cluster, a focus, a topic for at least 10 years. At least. So that means that you have to survive at least 3 changes of your minister. Because in those more than 10 years, you will have at least 3 new ministers, right? Or Secretary of State, or governor, or whatever they are called, on a national or local or regional level. They change every 4 years, and you have to make sure, because they don't, but you have to make sure that you survive this change. Otherwise, your cluster is dead in 4 years. Let me give you a little illustration to also go to the word capital here. In 2004, I was in the Netherlands. I was invited to be a member of the sort of advisory committee of the Ministry of Economic Affairs to build a funding structure for startup climate in the Netherlands. So we developed regulations and funding structures for pre-seed, for seed, for proof of concept, and for IP patent funds. 4 different funding structures by subsidy schemes of the national governments, for which university could apply for, and then the university with its partners could have access to funding in their own region based on partially funded funds from the national government. Now, I was a part of that team, and we developed those regulations and policies, and finally this led to a call. And because I was a member, I exactly knew what was going to be published. And before it was being published, I already wrote our proposal from Eindhoven University. So it was published, I don't remember exactly, but it was published on Tuesday morning, and I sent in my proposal on Tuesday afternoon. I was number 001 in the call, the first. And they were quite surprised that I already had a proposal, but I said, yeah, but that's simple. I was part of the committee, so I knew what I had to do. The proposal was rejected, and I was very disappointed. So I listened to what is the argument. It was rejected because chapter number 7, I never forget this. In chapter number 7, I had to promise that our pre-seed fund would be revolving. And I don't know who of you is in the world of pre-seed in incubator environments with high-tech companies, but to promise that a pre-seed fund in a very early stage startup climate of tech startups will be revolving is a ridiculous promise. I would even say it's a lie. You will not be able to make it pre-seed revolving, especially not if the project horizon is only 4 years. And that was what we had done. We had described a rule and regulation and a policy and an execution program with a 4-year horizon where universities could ask for a pre-seed fund. If they get it, they have to promise that it will be revolving in 4 years. And I refused that. I said, I'm not going to promise that it will be revolving, though in chapter 7, I wrote down that if we are lucky, we might get back about 10% in 4 years. We dream to get back about 40% in 8 years. And if we are very lucky and we create 1 or 2 big hits, then we might luckily become revolving for more than 70% in 10 plus years. So that's what I wrote down in chapter 7. So this was not according to call text, so the proposal was rejected. Now, after some period of sadness, we rewrote the proposal. I rewrote chapter 7, and I completely promised, as a lie, but I wrote down, this will be fully revolving within the next 4 years based on this assumption, that assumption, these statistics, and these procedures, which was a complete lie, but I wrote it in chapter 7. I sent it again, and this was project proposal number 002. The rest wasn't even there. We were the second one with a new proposal. And within 4 weeks, it was accepted. So we had a big party. The minister, because we were number 1 with the check, the minister wanted to have a party with journalists, with everything up and on it, to hand over the check of 6 million euros to me. So we had this little party, and after that we had some drinks, and then I went to the minister and I said, I have to admit something to you. Oh, what is that? I said, have you read chapter 7? No, I haven't read anything. Okay, but if you would have time to read chapter 7, then I now tell you, chapter 7 is a complete lie. So that you know this, it's a complete lie. You know what her answer, it was a lady, you know what her answer was? Oh, sorry, there's somebody at the door. 1 second and I will be back, okay?
To je nizozemski humor, kot zgleda.
In a movie, they would say this was a cliffhanger, right? The delivery guy was at the door, so now it's okay. You know what the answer of the minister was? Wim, don't mind. By the time that you have to report in about 4 to 5 years, You and I are not there anymore. So she was very honest. The rest of the people in the ministry accepted my lie. This is a little lesson maybe for some of you. Don't think that these funding structures will be ever revolving, only if you are very lucky. So back to this picture. Capital. Capital. What we need to have in an ecosystem, in a region, around a university or research institute, we need to have all stages of funding available and accessible. And preferably in a way that if I'm the little startup, I'm the little entrepreneur, I don't have to start all over again to explain my story to the new fund manager who is responsible for the next stage. I want to tell my story once, maybe twice, but not 12 times. And my funding will be in 12 rounds, or maybe even more than 12 rounds. And there will be new consortia, of course, but I will start very early within my university with some IP, then a proof of concept, then pre-seed, then seed, then early stage, and then growth, and then expansion. And I need money and money and money and money and money. And what we need to have available in the ecosystem, local, national, regional, I don't care where it is and who takes care of the money, but we need to have access to every step again and again without too many hurdles. And that's an important element in the wheel. Being able to support all levels of development, because a product is only sellable if it's at TRL 9 level. But within the university, we very often focus on TRL 1 to 3. Maybe sometimes we have 4, bit of 5, but that's it. So within the university, we never get further than TRL 3 or 4. In the ecosystem, we should have available structures, companies, partnerships, clusters, collaborations, I don't mind, to bring it further to level 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Maybe switching between responsible parties, but make sure that the whole cycle can be gone in your ecosystem. Otherwise, you need to have an exit and sell it and bring it to another region. And then it's gone. Last but not least, don't focus on universities only. We also need the so-called craftsmen, all the levels of people, of talent, and not only academics. We also need the guys and the girls who produce it, who screw the machine together, who do the logistics, who do the transport, who do the service and maintenance. All levels are necessary. Only academics will be a dramatic organization. So, proximity, another element of the ecosystem. Sometimes you might think for developing things and working together, and especially in the last 1.5 years with COVID, we can do everything online and on distance. And I don't know how you experienced the last 1.5 years, but the fact that we are all at home online behind the Zoom screen is less fun, it's less real, and it doesn't work perfectly. It's okay for a lot of activities, but it's not okay for new activities. For new activities, you have to build trust. You have to smell people, you have to touch people, you have to drink coffee, to make jokes. So the proximity really matters. If you are in a high-tech environment, in a very niche market, then the world is your partner. The collaborative partner might be at the other end of the world because there's only 3 in the world. And then proximity is, of course, difficult. And then distance is not that great barrier because there are enough reasons to do it. But for all other things, to be close, to meet and greet, to sit together, to have this unplanned meeting together, having lunch together, sit together is very important. That's where the word campus or science park or whatever you call it comes in. And I want to use the word magnet in a literal way. I don't know, one of you asked health. Do you all know what an MRI scanner is? I would say I hope not, because I hope you don't ever need it, but an MRI scanner is a big magnet in the hospital with whom we can make pictures, for example, of your leg or your body or your mind or your lungs or your brains or whatever. Pictures in a magnet, right? Big, expensive machine. Magnetic resonance, making pictures of the mind, for example. And in Maastricht, we, a couple of professors, had a dream to buy the next generation MRI scanner. They had a 1.5 Tesla, that's the strength of the magnet, and they wanted to have a 7 Tesla, so a jump forward. But unfortunately, the 7 Tesla machine was so expensive that a bunch of professors altogether couldn't afford to buy it. So don't worry, that's why we have subsidies. We can ask a subsidy and then we can buy it. We can ask the province to also co-fund a little bit to bring it to our province in Limburg. But even then, we cannot afford it. And what is the bad news? Why can we not afford this machine? Because this bunch of professors only uses this machine, let's say, 700 hours a year. And such a machine is so expensive that it should be used, let's say, 23 hours a day. Otherwise, every hour is too expensive and nobody can afford it. So that's where we had a dream, but we couldn't pay. And that's where the only solution was to make it shared. So we have been setting up a company, a 100% subsidiary initially, in which we dared to take the risk to buy too much equipment that we couldn't afford. But the university itself was our first customer, and we are attracting other customers. And because we have a magnet, a magnet, and this machine is so special, other professors, researchers, but even company people from startups and others wanted to use this machine because they can now have access to a beautiful, fantastic new version of MRI and are willing to pay a little bit for that per hour. So by creating this in a shared environment, even where it is a 100% subsidiary of the university, it is being run as a company, not for profit, but at least to make it financially stable. And now the joke is, as soon as we decided to put it into a company, and now we had a business plan where we can buy a 7 Tesla, we said to the province and to the national government, hey, there's also a 9 Tesla version coming out soon, which is 3 times the price of 7. Wouldn't it be nice to put ourselves on the world map by buying a 7 and a 9 Tesla at once? And by bringing in our own money and risk-taking company, the province, the national government, and finally also EU funding, made it possible to buy 7 and 9 Tesla at once. And now we have a shared facility, which is a magnet. It's 3 magnets. We have a 3 Tesla, 7 Tesla, and a 9 Tesla. And for those who are familiar in MRI, 3 Tesla is quite common today. Every big hospital has a 3 Tesla also. 7 Tesla is quite unique. There's only in every country a couple. But 9 Tesla, there's only 2 in the world, of which 1 still doesn't work, which is not ours, and ours works. So we have a magnet that attracts students, professors, PhDs, even companies from all over the world to come to work on our machine in our building between our professors and students. The Department of Psychology and Neuroscience in the past 5 years has tripled its amount of students and quadrupled its amount of PhDs. The amount of subsidy that we could get from Brussels has gone mad to a factor 8 compared to when we didn't have this machine. So we score project after project after project in Brussels because, good news, we don't have competition on this field. And that makes us unique in the call in Brussels. So having this shared facility literally as a magnet It brings people to want to collaborate with you in your region, with your university, with your professor, and that strengthens the ecosystem again. And that is a sort of 1 + 1 becomes 3, and 1 + 1 + 1 becomes 5. So that's the reason why you should be sharing it. Now, what is a Science Park characteristics? 4 very important elements. First of all, strong focus on R&D. So let's say an average industry area where a lot of companies are settled is not a campus. That is an industry area or a business area or whatever you call it. If you have an architect in your country who has to build 2 buildings, they tend to call it a campus today. But that is not a campus. That is 2 buildings. Not everything is a campus. So it has to be R&D focused. 2, there has to be a so-called anchor tenant on a, let's say, technology area. A company like Philips, or a company like ASML, or a company like DSM, or a company in food, or a company in health. There has to be at least 1 or more anchor tenants. Now, and I will come back to this also. 3, we have to have a sort of shared facility environment. Not everybody has its own thing. No, we share things. Even we share the restaurant. The high-tech campus Eindhoven, for those who know it, it started with, in every building, we closed all the restaurants, canteens, and coffee corners. If you want to eat something or drink something, you have to go to the strip. And on the strip, there's coffee, there's drinks, there's 8 different restaurants, there's meeting rooms, there's even a few shops. But if you want to do something for your stomach, you have to go there. And that is where it happens. That is where people accidentally meet and get in touch. Without knowing them, they start talking because they have to wait for their burger, or they have to wait for their coffee, or they have to eat and sit together because there's not an empty table. So that shared in the deepest way is very important. And we need to have an, I call it program, a sort of program on top of all the physical things, the buildings, the infrastructure, and the machines. We need to have a programmatic topic and strategic line on top of the campus. Then it's a campus. And all those different wheels interact. And if one of them is not there, it's not a campus. So we need financing and funding. We need a TTO type of role. We need shared facilities. We need an anchor tenant. We need buildings. We need a shared vision. We need all those different elements as an integrative approach. Otherwise, it's not an ecosystem. It's just elements of an ecosystem. Now, some advantages for each of the players. We have companies, universities, cities, and regions. Each one of the quadruple helix partners, and I forgot the real citizens here. This is maybe, what is it? Five types of players, including the real estate investors. The real estate as such will never be profitable. That's the risk of a campus. But the fact that in this real estate and in these buildings and assets, there is long-term commitment, that is what it makes profitable. A real estate investor in a campus has to accept long-term profit making instead of short-term profit making. A project developer is not interested in the campus. Now, the collaboration between all these players, that is what makes it worthwhile, and that's what makes it 1 + 1 + 1 becomes 5. Now, focusing on a few different clusters after some conclusions. I mentioned earlier the innovation district. I'm not talking about innovation districts here. That is something that is more in urban development, city development, municipality development hands, not on a national and global R&D agenda. It can be very worthwhile, but it's not what I mean here. In my opinion, and I've been working in many different campus environments already, we need 6 building blocks, as I call them. One of the building blocks is, if you go there, you will be inspired. You can play with things. You will You will be able to step into the future and have a sort of real life experience somewhere in the restaurant or in the meeting room. You are there for a meeting, but in the meantime, very subtle, you get inspired because you see things, you are confronted with things, you meet people who are different. So the unexpected is there. There is a structure where we can help you to exploit and make commercial steps. For example, the incubator, the ideation lab, the venture lab, but also there have to be students around there. So the university as such has to have the will to bring students and education to the campus if it's not the university premises. If it's an external campus, students have to be there. That's the young talent for the future. So commercial structures. It should be the meeting place. Every branch organization, every intermediate, every company who wants to do an event or a conference or a seminar, this is the place to be combined with inspiration, to be combined with commercial activities, to be combined with teaching. Now, the next one is, of course, the teaching side, the knowledge side. This is where trainings are being organized. This is where students can play and practice and experiment. The next building block is collaboration. Collaboration has to be facilitated by, of course, the campus organization. And last but not least, communication and public relations is important. And I mean here, always try to exaggerate 10% without lying. It's already there before it's there. And this is how it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. Ecosystem elements. I want to share with you two lessons learned from two different examples. The first one is Brainport Eindhoven, and I would say, I hope that you all heard of the word Brainport already. If not, we have still some messages to go. But Brainport started about 15 years ago in the Eindhoven region, and I was part of that when I worked at Eindhoven University. And a few years later, when I was part of Maastricht University, and still am part of Maastricht University, we worked on the so-called Brightlands concept, and I want to share these two examples. First, Brainport. For those who have been in Eindhoven, this is one of the iconic buildings that we have in the city. The city is well known because of this. Every child in the Netherlands, when he or she was a child, has been here. This is called the Philips Museum. Historically, Philips has built this building. It's still owned by Philips, by the way, but Philips has built this building and put in every machine and device and equipment that came out of inventions internally that were brought to the market or not. And this was a sort of museum of the future. And schools went there, families with children went there. It was also you could play with the machine, you could play with the technology. And it was also relevant for schools to get kids connected to new technology. And Eindhoven was famous for this, but after a number of years, it became more and more a historical museum than a museum of the future, because it became old-fashioned and nobody wanted to pay for it. So what we tried to do is in somewhere early 2000, I think, 2003, 2004, there was a dramatic economic problem in the region. Philips had to cut costs. DAF went almost bankrupt. A few other companies had big trouble. And at that time, there were a few people who decided to set up the so-called Brainport Initiative. At that time, it wasn't called Brainport, it was called Horizon. And the ZON was standing for Zuidoost, Southeast Netherlands, Horizon. So the forward agenda for the future. And what we wanted to reach is, in the Netherlands, for those who know, we already have Schiphol Airport, we have Rotterdam Main Port, and we also wanted to build the third pillar, the Brain Port. But in The Hague, our capital for the politics, in The Hague, they only knew two words ending with port, airport and seaport. And we wanted them to learn the third word called Brain Port. But nobody ever went to Eindhoven because it's almost 120 kilometers away. That's far too far to go. This was maybe a few figures. It's only 21 municipalities. It's about 800,000 people living there of the 18 million in the country. But look at this figure. We are spending in this, and I live in Eindhoven. We are spending here, that's why I say we are spending here over 2.5 billion in R&D. Private expenditure, which is quite enormous. A basic condition to start was there is in the heart of this Brainport region, in the heart is the Eindhoven University. If the university wouldn't have been here, there wouldn't have been a Brainport. Then Brainport would have been somewhere else where another university would have been in the heart. You really need a big, famous, technology-related, not completely technology, but at least technology-related university in the heart of that strong ecosystem. And if you look at the picture, around that university, there were all kinds of other research institutes, very specialized in automotive, in electronics, in microelectronics, in polymers, in all kinds of fields, embedded systems and software. And there were colleague universities around with whom we had exchange programs in Nijmegen, in Tilburg, even Leuven, Maastricht, Hasselt. So in the different, let's say in a circle of 120, 130 kilometers, there were a lot of partnerships with other specialized institutes. And we have chosen focus in these 6 areas. And any other topic and any other project or program in another area than these 6 is no longer being funded. That was the choice that we made in 2005. And of course, the 6 are still quite wide and broad. If you want, you can always make yourself part of one of these 6. But this is the focus. This is where we want to excel in open innovation ecosystem in these 6 topics. That was the first choice. Second, what we discovered, or maybe not as a coincidence, but based also on these 6 choices, we have enough companies to build the basic fundament of all of these 6 choices. We have some big leader firms, we have some very strong clusters already, and we want to make them even stronger. So the policy that we chose, together with the region and the province, was not to put money on the weaker elements of our economy. The focus that we chose was to strengthen the strong elements of the economy even further. And there was a huge discussion. Is that the right choice? Now, 15 years later, that was the right choice. Strengthen the strong even more. And the rest will grow together with all the others. And those were the sectors and companies that we had. A third choice that was made, because we already have a lot of big players in this region, what we did miss was the startup climate. And the philosophy behind that was Philips, with all respect, and I now say Philips, it could have been any other name, Philips is not going to change the world. Philips is dumb, big, slow, and bureaucratic. And I don't want to offend Philips, but you know why I'm saying this? The world is going to be changed by little startup companies. And of course, these startup companies will be eaten by Philips, by Shell, by DSM, by others. And that is for a little startup company a perfect exit strategy to be eaten in a couple of years. But by the fact that we have those startups, this is how new things are going to be started. This is how the world is going to be changed. And by the time that they grow a little bit, they will be eaten by the big players, but that is the way to change big players. Even company Philips adopted this by saying, we adopt open innovation, we support incubator programs, we want to be part of the funding of incubator programs, because we see internally it's impossible for us to change fast enough. We want to do spin-in creation by supporting all kinds of startup initiatives. And we do realize that we will be spending money on things that will fail. But now back to history. I told you they have over 120,000 patents. And they have been wasting lots and lots of money on patents that never go to the market. So they do realize that failures are also acceptable, also in startups. So in the whole system, in Brainport, startups are a very important central element that we constantly try to support again and again and again in all kinds of fields. And one additional element to the startup climate is around that startup climate, we built the so-called Eindhoven engine. It's a place to be at the university, a separate building of the university where there's no teaching, there's no research group, there's no department, but it's a building where young startups can have a little room and where all the other projects have their project meetings, gatherings, seminars, demonstration days, whatever, so that they meet and greet and get in touch with each other. And last but not least, with the startups that are also settled there. And the Eindhoven engine is literally an engine that accelerates by bringing together professors, teachers, students, company people, policymakers, incubator people, all different types of people brought together in buildings for meetings, for greetings, for events, and that is how it becomes an engine. And look at the figures. The brain, and what you see here in the left is European regions, and Stockholm, Munich, Grenoble. This is the amount of patents that comes out in Eindhoven, compared to the number 2 in the European rankings is Stockholm region, 698, 1266. It's almost double. If you look at our country, in our region in Eindhoven, we have 4% of the population. And this was 740, today it's almost 800. But let's say 4 to 5% of the population lives here. The amount of inventions is 52% of the country. The expenditure in R&D, 2.1 billion, today it's 2.4, 2.5, is 27% of the national expenditure of private R&D in a region with only 5% of the people, right? So those are extreme figures, which really show that this is a technology region with high-tech R&D. We have an integral approach. When we started this 15 years ago, and I was part of that in the Eindhoven period, we started as a project organization, but it was based on 3 pillars initially. The pillar people, we have to make sure that we have the right people on all levels, in teaching and education, but also in post-academic education, in post-applied research education. We have to focus on a number of technology clusters, as I explained before, and we have to focus on creating business. And the startup climate was one of the big elements in that. So those were the 3 pillars in the roadmap: people, technology, and business. And after a couple of years, we discovered that we forgot the 4th pillar, which is extremely important. The so-called success factor to make it work is, did we take care of all the basics? Do people want to live here? Yeah, if their kids can go to school. So having the right schools, including international schools, is very important. People want to live here if they can also do sports. People want to live here and work here if they can also do recreation and tourism, if they also can visit family abroad. So train connection, airport access, international school, sport and leisure facilities, extremely important as basics, which, if they are not there, are the dissatisfier. And if they are dissatisfiers, companies don't want to be here because they cannot find the right people here. So the 4th pillar was added after a couple of years, and the whole roadmap of the Brainport area and the Brainport ecosystem is built on those 4 pillars. An important lesson is also the leadership. We were lucky. In this starting period, initially, there were 3, sorry for the ladies, there were 3 guys who were extremely important in getting this up and running. And luckily enough, those 3 guys had, and I know them all 3 personal, those 3 guys had relatively small egos. And it seems to be not important, but it is extremely important. Those three guys didn't claim the success themselves. I can guarantee you, and I know the mayor, and I also know the mayor who came after this mayor, the next mayor. I know that guy too. I worked with him quite a lot. I can guarantee you, without offending him, that if that mayor who came later would have been the mayor in that time, we wouldn't have had Brainport. Because the second mayor that came then was a man with a very big ego, and every success was thanks to him, and every failure was because of the stupid university. In those 4 years that he was the mayor, almost nothing happened. It was a complete, no, not complete, but it was almost a standstill for 4 years. And luckily enough, this guy was not re-elected after 4 years and he left. Now, this is the mayor, but I could tell you exactly the same story for the president of the university and exactly the same story for the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, which was an industry guy, and all three had a very small ego. What is leadership? Leadership is also to be able to share success with others, right? Not claim all the success, not always to be there in the front line. And they were able to share everything, share their ambitions, share the roadmap, share the goals, share the strategy, share the programs, share the facilities, and make sure that everybody below them was willing to share. And this is why we have been building the so-called Brainport Navigator, which was a sort of visionary document and roadmap for the next 20 years. And every 3-4 years, they update the navigator with a horizon for the next 20 years again. And it's based on trust. The governance structure is based on trust. One important element that we decided then, and is still valid, when we are discussing a new project or a new program or a new structure or a new initiative, there's always one important check question. Is there a captain of industry, somebody from industry, not from government, not from the university, but is there somebody from industry who is willing to share the board? If we cannot find a person from industry sharing the board or the steering committee or whatever it's called, if there's not somebody from industry who stands up and says, I will do it, then this is a dead project and we don't start it. So leadership is always in the hands of the industry, not of the university, not of the government. The government is funding, but the government is not having the last say in the chair position. Very important elements and key success factors. Now, a few typical discussions that pop up again and again and again. Every time that somebody changes position, the discussion starts all over again. So it's very important that the people below these positions, a lot of you are below, you are not the highest in rank, that those people know how to survive these changes. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to be able to wait for another 4 years to get rid of this one to get the next one. And that's an important lesson. Whenever something changes in the ecosystem, the discussion starts again. There's a new little fire somewhere. And the strength of the collaboration should be able to eliminate all those little fires. And every management change everywhere leads to discussion. And another element why things are being rediscussed and renegotiated, when you have an enormous successful exit, the jackpot, we start a discussion again, because as a result of this, somebody gets filthy rich. And this is where the word jealousy comes in, and this is what we don't want. We want to have a strong ecosystem and everybody shares. But with the jackpot, we have an exit. We have somebody who gets filthy rich. I had this now not in Eindhoven, but we had this in Maastricht a couple of years ago. We sold a venture that went extremely successful with an exit. And because we had a so-called sharing mechanism on revenue on IP, 1/3 of the net revenue in the university goes to the individual inventor. And at that point in time, we suddenly had, instead of little amounts of money until then. We suddenly had to pay one single professor who is full-time employed. We had to pay him an amount of more than 3 million euros. And this guy was so friendly to send a message to the president of the university somewhere early December. Would it be possible to transfer the money before Christmas? And that's where everything exploded. We are not going to pay over 3 million euros to a professor who is full-time employed and gets a decent salary. So this cannot be the goal. So that's where we renegotiated the whole discussion about who should get which share of the pie. And that was driven by a hit, a successful hit. The same discussion will start when we have an enormous failure. Then we all want to blame somebody else, right? And that's where everything is going to be renegotiated and rediscussed again. So a very important lesson here, try to choose a long-term strategy and make sure that you survive every discussion again and again, and that you stick to the strategy for at least, I say 10, but maybe it's even much more than 10 years. Make sure that you have structures in place to make it at least longer than 10 years. Now we have a couple of minutes left. Brainport is an everlasting strategic cost center. It's not a profit center. It is an everlasting cost center. The profit is somewhere else. New jobs, wealth, economy, unemployment figures going down, right? Attractive climate. The profit is somewhere else. It's always indirect profit. So the word revolving, whenever you use it, it's the wrong word. Indirect revolving is okay, but revolving, it's never revolving. It's always a strategic cost center. Now, maybe you should think of what does it need to build Brainport in your country? Not for now. Let's go to the second example, Brightlands. Have you all heard of Brightlands? Has anybody heard of Brightlands before? Some of you, yes. Okay. Brightlands is 4 physical campuses in the province of Limburg. The idea behind it, at a certain point of time, 5-6 years ago, the province asked an external bureau to do a study on the demographic development of the province in the next 30 years. And the conclusion was, in 30 years, nobody wants to live in Limburg anymore. They all flee away to other regions in the Netherlands or abroad. So it will be a spooky environment. You cannot sell your house anymore. Young kids go away and never come back. And we get older and older and older and die, and it's an empty province. That was, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that was the vision of the Bureau if we don't change anything. So the province took this serious. At the same time, luckily enough, they sold their energy company in the liberalization discussion. They sold their energy company, which was a big cash cow, and they got 2.8 billion euros in cash. So they had some money and they had a sense of urgency. And that's where the idea was born, together with the university. Good news, there's only one university in the province, so they only had one university to talk to. So they made it a shared problem, and the province and the Maastricht University together developed the idea to build 4 big campuses in the province, all around the province, one on materials and material science, one on health and healthcare and medicine, one on smart services, IT, artificial intelligence, that type of topic, and one on food and healthy living. Choosing focus, right? Choosing focus. And what we decided to organize the campus in company structures, not collaboration agreements, no, make companies with shareholder Maastricht University 1/3, province 1/3, and now we need the triple partner for the triple helix structure. And in this one we found DSM, a big company. In this one we found the hospital. In this one APG, which is the biggest pension fund in the Netherlands. And in this one we found BASF, Nunhem Seeds to be precise. So this is triple helix, 3 campuses. Look at the figures. and the map, this is the map of the province. And those three are here, and one is in the north, the Greenport campus. These are the amounts. The first figure is amount of companies on the campus, which is quite impressive. More than 100 companies located on the campus with their R&D facilities. It's not production, it's R&D activities from companies, over 100. There's 3,000 employees working here, R&D related, innovation related employees, not craftsmen or whatever, not clerks and administrative and head office, no, R&D departments with their people, over 3,000. And then here, 600, 10,000, and this is a lie, of course, because this includes the hospital and the university itself. That's why it's over 10,000. But if you deduct those two, then it's over 1,000. And the same for students, 1,200 students here. So they are gone from the premises of the university. They are now here, and here, and here. And at the premises of the university, there's only 10,000 left. So that is the campus figures. What is the vision behind it? The campus is driven by global challenges. So let's say the European agenda. It's always based on excellent science with unique research infrastructures. I will illustrate that later. It's focused on people. And last but not least, we have a TTO in place on every campus. The health campus as one of the four examples. This is the mission statement. So based on, let's say, challenges and global goals. And the idea is every project, every initiative, every whatever we are doing is always, let's say, judged on three types of KPIs. What is the scientific impact of this project for mainly the university, of course? What is the business and innovation result coming out of this? And last but not least, what is the societal impact for the region, the country, or abroad? And this is the triple helix goal, and every project has to have these three elements included before we decide to do it. It's, of course, buildings and facilities, but last but not least, most important element, it is people. All kinds of intelligent people working together on four hotspots. On valorization, on business development, on venturing, on incubator, and on ecosystem development, we have a complete support organization in place. All the pillars are there, including all the money. Different funding structures, internal or external, are available for every phase of development. And if you look at one-stop shop, in a traditional university, we have a knowledge transfer office which covers, let's say, these areas. Up until early financing, and maybe there's a holding structure that can do a little bit more. And then we have to go to external incubators, accelerators, and external venture capital to do the rest of the game. The health campus, however, and all four campuses, they can go all the way. So they have, in joint venture structures, they have access to whatever money is needed to bring a bright idea from lab to patient, including all the necessary structures, legal, M&A department, business plan support, coaching, mentoring, etc. And if you look at the facilities, I mentioned earlier Scanexus. Here's Scanexus as one of our shared facilities, and we have more of these. Different types of laboratories, which in a traditional university, each one of these labs could be the lab of a professor in the department, funded by public money and project money as his laboratory. We have deliberately chosen every time that we have to upgrade or rebuild something, we try to bring it out of the university into a company structure, make it shared. The university is, of course, an important customer, but it is on arm's length distance. And that is the choice that we have made. And sometimes professors don't like this, but it's the only way to convince them that they can get this very expensive piece of equipment and not having to pay for it completely all alone. Sharing makes it cheaper. We have a vibrant community that we develop, different business clubs, different event organizations, different young professional communities, different meeting places, breakfast sessions, evening, whatever you mention, it's there. In every campus, many moments of meetings and gatherings, completely facilitated. And look at the IP dashboard. This is how we look per campus at our portfolio of inventions. It starts, of course, always somewhere here. There is an invention that we need to protect, and how do we get rid of it? And what is the potential of the invention? And we all start here in the hope that we can all bring them there. We also have to be able to decide to stop and kill. Facilitate to try, spend money, waste money sometimes, but also be able to stop and kill. And for a TTO person, those people who are in the TTO environment, it's a drama to tell to the professor, we stop and kill, because he feels it's his baby. He has been working on this for almost 20 years. And now you say, stop and kill. Yes, because you have focus and you have goals. The same we do with our spin-offs. We create spin-offs. They all start here in a sort of idea phase, and they have huge potential sometimes, and they have a lot of possibilities to go to the market, but we want to bring them here. It starts here, and we want to bring them there. And if they don't move fast enough, we kill. Bad message, but it is an important message, being able to start fast and kill fast or fail fast. Look at the result for the last 7 years, sorry. Next to the money that we have been spending ourselves in the campus organization, this is the health campus. We have attracted 137 million of invested capital in the 37 spin-offs that we brought to the market. We had many more, but 37 were brought to the market with 137 million invested together with us. The money came from the province itself a little bit, the rest of the country, from Europe, and from the rest of the world, 24%. And this is interesting. Where did we get the 24% from the rest of the world? That is, to be honest, basically those two guys. You recognize them? Leonardo DiCaprio and Sergey Brin from Google. Those people are loaded with money, and they are willing to invest in 2 little startups in the Maastricht area. Did we find them? No. The good news is they found us. So what we seem to be successful in is to make enough noise and publications and PR that these type of investors, we don't have to find them, they find us. And that's an important success factor. Make noise, make noise. Spend money on marketing and publication and PR. Key issues here at the Brightlands campus. The role of the university, we have completely outsourced that to the campus. And the university is only 1/3 shareholder. So the TTO is now led by 3 shareholders. So the TTO is not a classical TTO anymore. It's part of a joint venture with partners. And that has pros, but sometimes it unfortunately also has cons. Sometimes when a company is in trouble, and I don't say that DSM is in trouble, but let's say DSM is in change, that makes it so now and then quite complicated to have a discussion on the TTO role. They support the campus completely, but it is sometimes difficult. It's always public-private partnership, and the core message, again, like in Brainport, we have an agenda for more than 10 years, and we do accept that the campus is going to make a loss for more than 10 years, and that we have to fund this all together. It's not profit-driven, it's a cost center. So, again, the question to you, what does it take to build this Brightlands concept, which is different from Brainport? Brainport is more an ecosystem, and the campuses are more campuses, right? But the combination is ideal, and the philosophy behind it is the same. Now, back to what we started, a couple of minutes, and then we will end. I want to give you this. I promised you earlier, the SWOT tool. You all did a SWOT, and I said to you, forget it. You don't want to know SWOT. What you want to learn is Otswe. The 4 characters are the same, but in a different order. Otswe. Why is that? Why do I want you to know Otswe instead of SWOT? Any idea?
Always look on the brighter side of life.
Okay. Yeah, Thea, I'm going to wrap up in 2 minutes. Look.
Great, thank you.
Look, and I'm skip a few slides. I go to this one, including the last picture. This is the slide that I want to end with. If you are a company, if you are a university, if you are a startup, if you are whatever, this is you. And now and then you have to make a SWOT analysis for yourself. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities? And what are my threats? And deduct from that a roadmap to develop sales opportunities, short term, to develop strategic goals, long term. And those strategic goals are always in these fields. But what is the idea behind the SWOT? You start outside in writing a SWOT. So first, in your SWOT, you have to look to O's and T's. And the O's and T's come from the SWOT of your customer, the SWOT of the market that you want to conquer, and the competition who's trying to compete with you. And if they have a SWOT O element, that's an O for you. If they have an O, it's an O for you. If they have a T, it's an O for you. If they have a W, it's an O for you, right? And that's why we want, what I want is you to remember OTSW, because if you start, and we are all not Chinese, we start always in the upper left corner and we end in the lower right corner, right? When we write down something on a piece of paper. And I want you to start with OT, because that's external, outside, and then plot it on SW, inside, outside in thinking, instead of SWOT, which is always inside out thinking. And you shouldn't do that. Based on a SWOT analysis, and you can do this for building an ecosystem, making a SWOT analysis for your ecosystem, exactly the same philosophy. It leads to what are the pressure points that we have to solve? What do we have to sell? And I don't mean selling cookies, I mean selling the policy, selling the vision, selling the idea, selling it to the colleagues in the partnerships, build a roadmap and deduct actions. And this was it. Sorry for 12 minutes extra time.
Thank you.
Any last comments or questions?
I think there was a lot of information. We need to do a follow-up on these 2 questions that were posed in the slides. Any comments? I'd be happy to maybe just, give 5 minutes more. If there's a debate, let's choose the opportunity to have Wim here. Maybe any impressions, thoughts, anything that pops out.
Nobody dares. Oh my God.
Yeah, hi. I think this kind of knowledge was very interesting because there was a lot of things to open our minds and maybe look to the reality and the situation in our ecosystem or maybe on a different way. So I found it very different thing also for capacity building in Slovenia or knowledge building and so on. Looking from the perspective of spirit when dealing in this coordination and building innovation ecosystem and you mentioned cooperation, co-creation and so on. So I think we will need to go step by step towards that, but very interesting topics and insights. Thank you.
Yeah, but maybe, Irina, to give you some comfort, Rome was not built in a day.
Yeah, I know. It is a process. We know that. We're starting it.
I stopped sharing, but I'm going to share again. If you need more minutes than the last 2 minutes now, here's my contact details. You will get the slides, by the way, so it's also in the slides.
Great.
This was the commercial part of it, eh?
Yeah.
Thanks for your attention, and hopefully you can use it. Thanks for the compliment.
Janko would like to add something. Janko, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Wim, for your presentation. You know, I used to work also for the public administration, so I listened to you very carefully, and I may say that we in Slovenia has the common starting point, because you said that you change your garment so often. I believe that in Slovenia even more often, but you overcome that obstacle, because we usually say that it's not possible to do anything because the policy is changing all the time, but you experience the same situation and you make it possible. So this is one really important message. And the second important message you send is also that we shall not wait to the heads, that the heads, the state secretaries, the ministers, I don't know, the little God will decide and bring some changes, but it is really up to the guys right now in front of the screens, to start to be active, to change the mentality of their bosses and the institutions, and to, let's say, to create the movement. What I'm doing, it's just to say what I'm doing right now. You know, I experienced that the push from the national level in Slovenia, it's really unknown. I experienced it as a really challenging, and that's why I'm now in let's say a kind of promoter of the process in establishing the innovation ecosystem in healthcare, but not at the national level, but starting with the regional level, with the regional community, where, let's say, where we have really a great management of the regional hospital, that all the regional entities are there, also the funds are there. So it is really the orchestrator that are now, let's say, I'm also in the role of that right now try to motivate the different stakeholders to, let's say, to know each other better and to start to collaborate as a kind of efficient ecosystem.
I fully agree, and maybe not. I'm not unique, of course, but I told you in the beginning, I've been working for 9 universities and 7 universities of applied science. You know what the reason is behind that?
Yeah.
I'm self-employed for over 30 years now. But the good news is, because I'm self-employed, I can run away when we have the new president coming in who's not the right guy or girl. And then 4 years later, sometimes it takes 8 years, I can come back and do something again. But that's the reason why I work for many different universities, because now and then you just have to step out, because I will get frustrated if I have to wait for 4 years.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, so one of the challenging question is also, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps for you, Usha, it is that in Slovenia, the practice is the technology transfer offices, or let's say that the orchestrator within the university is not a department, it's not a business function, it is a project. So it is a project with the beginning and the end. So it is really not in the structure as a kind of strategic function of some kind of universities. And it is the same in, let's say, in the other parts of the ecosystem. So then it is the motivation for the universities to create something like this, to understand that creating new value is also the purpose, not only teaching and let's say to create new students and new talents, but also to do a bit more to create new value. And this is something that, I don't know, perhaps I hope that the colleagues from the TTOs or Irena from Spirit will say that it is not true anymore. But in my opinion, let's say we are not in the position for, let's say, for us that universities were, let's say, would be so self-aware to change themselves in the kind of business units as well.
But Janko, there's one important thing that I also learned. Either if you are employed at a university, and I'm not, so I can easily step out and go somewhere else. And that's a choice that I made. But if you are employed at a university, make sure in a TTO role that you have the backup of at least one of your board members, because if you don't have the support of this person, you have a terrible job and you will be killed somewhere.
Yeah.
I can comment on that.
Ursha is smiling here. Now, Ursha, floor is yours. Yeah.
I think, we are not there yet. We are not yet part of a system, right? But we are currently part of a pilot project, which I think showed there is a lot of added value when you have a TTO. So for us, I can say we have support from the management and so on. Mm-hmm. And I also think that our Ministry for Education is supporting us and will, try to put this into documents and make it a systemic support. But yes, we are in the process. But I think that the momentum is good right now in Slovenia. And of course, it's just not the funding, but you also need to get trust from the researchers, from companies. The companies need to start being aware of the things that you're doing, that you are a one-stop shop and so on. And you also need to build the competences, and all of this takes time. But I think we started this process. And also, seeing you all in this room, and I hope you'll have a chance for a follow-up, because I think we are here the relevant stakeholders who can really make a difference. Future.
Last message. When I was a young kid, my first job at the university in Rotterdam at that time, and I was not a young kid, of course, I was 30 years of age, but I was quite inexperienced in that job. It was my first job. And I was far too ambitious, and I still am, but I learned one important element from the board member that I was reporting to at that time. I always try to jump forward 4 steps at once. And he said to me, Wim, be aware. It's very good what you're doing, but it's impossible. You have to learn to accept 4 steps forward means 3 steps backward. Always accept 3 steps backward. Learn this and you will go 1 step ahead. And if you can continue doing that, 4 minus 3 is plus 1, is always okay. And you have to be a bit more patient. That's what I learned in the last 33 years, and it's a truth. You have to accept 4 steps forward means 3 steps back. And you are still going forward. It takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Okay, let's wrap up with this, I think, very smart sentence. So this is something we can take away also for our personal life, I guess. Thank you, Wim, and thank you everybody for joining us today, for taking your time, and I hope we'll meet again in the same number somewhere else.
Next time we will meet face to face, right?
Yes, hopefully.
In Hungary, not in the Netherlands, but in Hungary. Sorry, in Slovenia.
Okay, thank you.
No, we can meet in Hungary.
Yeah, we can also go there. Okay, thank you. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you, Urshka.
Bye.